welcome to the Lincoln Theater. Very nice of President Lincoln to be allowing us his stage. And believe me, you're all welcome to come back and see great moments with Mr. Lincoln at any time, so feel free. But tonight we do have a bit of a special event for you here. We're starting the first weekend series of celebrating our 58th anniversary here at the Disneyland Resort. So we have a special guest speaker. She just celebrated her 30th anniversary for the Walt Disney Company. She's an inaugural recipient of the Walt Disney Legacy Award. And she's an artist and historian for the Walt Disney Company. So ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Stacia Martin.
Thank you, Chris, and hello everybody. It's so nice to be here with you. I want to thank you all for coming on a very warm day, I know, and I want to thank you especially for being annual pass holders, because you're the extended Disneyland family, those of us who get to live here, and those of you who practically get to live here. We all get to have a marvelous time together, and so it's terrific to be with the extended family and be able to celebrate our history just on the verge of our 58th birthday. And what Chris said is right, we are going to be doing a series of these presentations themed to the different lands of the park. This is our first one, and this will be devoted, I'll even show you on the slide here, works. There we go. To the realms of Frontierland and Adventureland, and the rest of the park will be following in order, so I hope that you'll be able to join us for those. But one thing that is a lot of fun when you look at Disneyland and Disneyland's history is that, as you might guess, there's so much. So many things happened that were very tiny, and then there were some huge events that lasted all year and maybe even beyond. So I didn't really want to go in assembling this show with some sort of sequence or historical, pedantic sort of lecture format. So I just picked a few things I like, and we're going to talk about them. Kind of like my house on Saturday. Come on over, we're going to just play with toys in the toy room, and I'll show you some fun toys. So that's what we're going to do. But the original realms of Disneyland, remember how innovative these were. There had never been a theme park before with multiple environments that were like stepping into motion pictures. And just like motion pictures, that's exactly who the designers were. The original Imagineers were the people that Walt plucked from the movie studios, both his own and the others in Hollywood, to try and bring that same environmental immersion that you had in movies into a real-life entertainment experience. And so the details, the idiosyncratic little things that you would find around corners, the thinking, and most of all, the whimsy is exactly the mindset of the motion pictures of that time, the fanciful motion pictures of that time, and no one had ever been to places like this. So that's why the key realms of Adventureland, Frontierland, Fantasyland, Tomorrowland, and Main Street were so innovative because they weren't just places where there were rides, per se. They were environments that you entered where you could basically check your modern life at the door and immerse yourself in a historic or a fanciful time period. So tonight, like I say, we're going to start with our salute to Adventureland and Frontierland. And those of you who may have seen some of my presentations before, or who may know me, you might know that I really, really like collectible records. And so you'll be seeing a little bit of recording collateral here in our presentation today. But specifically, in this case, I thought, what better way to introduce Adventureland than with a song? Did you know that there's an official Adventureland theme song?
No.
No. Well, there is. So brace yourselves.
How would you like to take a ride on a riverboat?
How would you like to meet a lion face to face?
If you think you'd like to see a monkey swinging from a tree, Adventureland, that's the place. How would you like to see a baby crocodile?
Maybe you'll run across an alligator too.
If you think you'd like to go where the tiger lilies grow, Adventureland, that's for you. There's a real wide jungle there for you to explore. There's a real native village there and so much more. Lots of extraordinary things that look like a page from your geography book. So if you want to take a trip that you won't forget,
where such
Norman Luboff Chorale, that was one of the big choral groups that worked in the 50s and 60s in recordings, very, very famous. And also, you may have heard of Alan and Marilyn Bergman. They wrote a lot of Barbra Streisand's hits, including The Way We Were and The Score to Yentl. Well, the music to that was by Norman Luboff, and the words were by Marilyn Keith before she married Alan Bergman. So there's some top-grade talent for you, singing about hippos and monkeys. So, but anyway, Adventureland was one of the most keenly looked forward to lands when Disneyland opened, because the Jungle Cruise was the centerpiece of Adventureland, and it was the thing that had, I think, pretty much the most airtime on the Disney television show to that point. They had all kinds of footage of the construction, and Walt was always showing drawings and renderings and things, so people said, I can't believe there's going to be a jungle in Southern California. I can't wait to see this. So it was a very hotly awaited attraction. On October 27th of 1954, the Disneyland television show went on the air. And this is, of course, quite some time before Disneyland the Place opened. But this weekly anthology series also featured Disney television series that were, or shows that were original, Disney theatrical features that were put on television for the first time, original programming, and sneak peeks at what Disneyland the Place would be all at one time. It was Walt's way of acquainting the public with the park. Just about 6 months or a little more before it actually opened. So I'd like to show you a little clip now of how Walt himself described what Adventureland would be from the very first episode of Disneyland in October of 1954.
Adventureland, the base of operations for our camera teams in almost every sector of the world. Within Adventureland is a wonder world of nature's own design. Her animal creatures, her fabulous plan of life. Here, too, is a world of unusual people and faraway places.
So it wasn't just about the park, it was about the true life adventures and bringing them to television and having kind of a naturalistic sort of view of the world, even within the confines of what people would think of immediately as a fantasy show. So he was way ahead of his time also with presenting the material that you have now entire cable channels devoted to about nature and wildlife. But we all knew that you really couldn't have real jungle animals and tigers and things at Disneyland, so we had to do a little bit of Imagineering to get there. And one of the chief Imagineers who was responsible for the Jungle Cruise did something I think that no one else has done in the history of our park attractions. When the Jungle Cruise itself was being laid out here at the park, basically they had a big bunch of dirt. And there was not really any path or any scheme of how they could use it because there was no topographical reality here. It was just all flat. So this one particular Imagineer said, okay, I think I know what to do. And he literally, I mean this very literally, got a stick and walked out there into the dirt and dragged the stick and walked this entire route and said, okay, there's where we want our track, stake it out. And that is the Jungle Cruise.
That's impressive.
Wasn't it easy back then? And this Imagineer who did this was a gentleman named Harper Goff, who you may know very well because he was also the designer of the submarine Nautilus for the motion picture 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. So you can design a Victorian submersible, or you can take a stick and design a jungle. That's pretty good. But Harper had been a designer over at Warner Brothers, and he worked on several films and came to Disney early on in the 50s, worked on 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, several other films, and then stayed with Disney for much of his career. He also did a lot of pieces for other studios later in life. He was the art director for the original Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory movie, the one with Gene Wilder. So that chocolate room and everything, that all came from him. But I thought it would be fun to see something else that he did that a lot of people don't know about because basically no one ever got to see it. 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, of course, was a huge, huge hit. And Harper himself was to have made a cameo appearance in the movie, but sadly it was cut. The footage does not exist that we know of, but we do have a still. So here is Nautilus designer, Jungle Cruise designer Harper Goff in his role in 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. And just for fun, I brought the page of the script, which has Harper's 2 lines in it. So I'm now going to do a dramatic reading of Harper Goff's lines. He was playing a missionary, as you can see, and the scene is the shipping office. The sea monster, which is really the submarine Nautilus, has been discovered in San Francisco. And of course, the entire shipping world is all up in arms, and all the shipping passages canceled, and it's really a mess. So the missionary is standing there in line with the professor and his helper, that's Paul Lucas and Peter Lorre, and they're all trying to book passage on ships. So the missionary says, this is Harper, "Surely you can't strand us in this wicked town. I simply have to be in the Solomons by Christmas. The mission expects me." The shipping agent says, "I can't help it, Reverend. There's not a man jack will step aboard while this monster's on the loose." And then the agent, in frustration, goes away, and the missionary turns and addresses the professor and says, "Those poor heathens, they won't have a stitch on by the time we get there." So that was to be Harper's on-screen debut, but sadly didn't happen. But they did film it, and if they ever do find it, I'll let you know.
Or play on Blu-ray DVD.
It's not on the regular DVD, but yes, who knows if there is a Blu-ray, but we have to find it first, so we'll see what happens. But Harper had another hidden talent, not just acting. He also was one of the mainstays of the Firehouse 5+2, a Dixieland jazz band that started out as a lunchtime recreational band among Disney artists and others who liked to play music. And Ward Kimball was the leader with his trombone, and he recruited all kinds of folks from all over Disney. Harper is the one that you'll see right there on the running board playing banjo. And up in the corner you'll see Bob Cummings fronting the Firehouse 5, because the Firehouse 5 played here at Disneyland on opening day and on many other occasions. They were also frequent guest performers during the Dixieland at Disneyland Festival. So even though it's July and a little warm, I think it's time that we hear a little chorus of Jingle Bells, because this will give you a chance to see Harper Goff actually playing his banjo with a great deal of glee. It's from the December 25th, 1950 telecast of 1 Hour in Wonderland, the very first ever Disney television production. So take a peek.
Monty, see if Walt's around. All clear.
That's animator Frank Thomas on celesta and keyboards.